0%. That's the homelessness rate in Japan. In reality, it isn't strictly zero, it's 0.003%, which is, you'll agree, extremely low. Has Japan reached a near perfect level in social and economic policy? Probably not. First, what does it mean to be homeless in Japan? The first thing to understand is that homelessness is viewed as very shameful. Whether among ordinary people or on TV shows, homeless people are portrayed as those who don't want to work and who are personally at fault. At best there is curiosity, but little to no compassion. This is the reason why Japanese people don't protest much against anti-homeless measures like closing parks at night or banning panhandling. Yes, begging is illegal in Japan. So how do homeless people live and eat? NGOs help them with giving some soup. But above all, I want you to know that homeless people in Japan work, mainly selling found magazines or collecting empty cans. Some YouTubers follow the homeless man living in Asakusa who collected a huge number of cans, hundreds of kilos, and it kinda pays. He brought in 22,848 yens. That's roughly a week's income. I admit that in dollar it looks kinda small, but with Japanese yen it's not that bad. When a meal can cost 400 yens, that's 57 meals a week, before other expenses of course. Cans are valuable, so informal territories sometimes exist to avoid unfair competition, leading to turf wars often ignored by local police. Clearly, the homeless is a persona non grata, and Japanese people tend to make them feel this way. Next question, does that 0.003% count really everyone? The answer is clearly no. A big blind spot is the cyber homelessness, and it all happens in manga cafe. A manga cafe is a concept where you go to read manga, but in practice, it's a place to rent a semi-private cubicle, go online, have drinks, eat cup ramen, and above all, sleep. So some people use them as cheap hotel. Today, manga cafe often ask for proof of residence, but it's easy to fib. It mainly covers the establishment for inspections. These manga cafe are quite popular in Japan because they are much cheaper than regular hotel. Roughly 1,200 yens per night versus 10,000 yen in a capsule hotel. So this was my second point, and now third point, children and teens. Even if they aren't street sleeping, they are severely affected by poverty. That's why, as a tourist, we don't necessarily see homelessness. Nothing sets them apart from ordinary citizens. But behind that impressive 0% hides a form of poverty the country has never faced. If Japan prevents visible homelessness, people pile into the bracket just above it. How does Japan avoid confronting the problem? How are the vulnerable, sometimes even high earners, kept poor? And how can 1 in 7 children live below the poverty line in Japan? Welcome to Japan's real poverty. Japan has several slums. I agree the word is harsh, but there are places where poor, unwanted people were concentrated. To understand their origin, we have to go back to Edo. In Edo, a poor caste emerged. These people were placed in a very specific corner of the capital, the Sanya district. I actually visited the neighborhood and it doesn't feel seedy, at least today. And technically the word Sanya doesn't refer to anything in Japan. It means it doesn't exist anymore. The name was removed from any official documents since 1966. Historically, in Sanya, there were tanners and butchers. Why specifically them? Because they worked a lot with blood. And in Buddhist religion, blood is impurity. It's named kegare. This is the main reason why they were excluded. And this caste of people were called Burakumin. And don't take it lightly, because even today there is still some kind of discrimination against these people. There is some lists of Burakumin people being illegally posted online. But the story of Sanya doesn't end here. A little later, after World War II, when Tokyo had to be rebuilt, laborers were brought in and housed in Sanya. That's how it became a somewhat sketchy neighborhood. Sketchy mostly because after the war, the local workers formed clans and fought among themselves. Like the Yakuza? Absolutely. And that's precisely where the Yakuza also found their henchmen. These workers were men who had come from the countryside, hoping to find work in the capital. Since they didn't have a penny, renting an apartment wasn't an option. So they were housed differently. There are a huge number of hotels in this area, at prices that are hard to beat, between 2,000 and 3,000 yen per night. So why do the castaways of Manga Cafe still go to Manga Cafe when for the same price they could afford a whole room in Sanya? Well, let's try to find out. I tried to get in, but it felt like these places are pretty selective about their clients. The number of rooms is limited and what they're aiming for is very long-term residents. So here is what it looks like inside. A futon with questionable hygiene in a little box. Of course, showers and toilets are shared. And above all, you mustn't make any noise. In Sanya, there are also parks that look like this. And I have to say it's quite shocking to see this in Japan. And if you see me right now in this empty park, it's because everyone living in it was lining up to get free meals from charities. Besides Sanya, there are also two slum districts in Japan, the least bad of them being Sanya. There is Kotobuki in Yokohama, and finally the worst, Nishinari in Osaka. Nishinari is still pretty sketchy, much more than Sanya. And it's more or less the same story. They removed the neighborhood's name to make it disappear and cleaned everything up the best they could. And right now, officials are just waiting. What are they waiting for? It's pretty cruel. You have probably noticed that the people we saw in Sanya and in those other neighborhoods are almost exclusively men between 50 and 70 years old. There aren't any young people at all, and that's because they all belong to what we call the lost generation. It's a generation in Japan that suffered when the economic bubble burst between 1994 and 2004, and either they lost their jobs or never found one. Economically, it's also called the lost decade. Excluded from the system for a few years, some were never able to re-enter it. And those are the people you can see in these neighborhoods today. So this problematic population in Japan isn't being replenished. Socially, the problem in these districts will resolve itself over time. Or to put it more clearly, it will be solved when all these people die. What worries Japan much more is when younger people are homeless. It's maybe a phenomenon you have already heard about. It's about homeless kids, the Toyoko kids. A phenomenon that drew huge international attention because it's so shocking. There are teenagers, actually mostly teenage girls, who flee parental pressure or an unsafe home environment and gather on Toyoko Plaza in Kabukicho. More than just gathering, they form what we can call a family. And they are promoting these new family values on social media to grow their numbers and protect one another. And it works because these posts on social media works as an advertising. Ordinary Japan kids can feel tempted to join in, and some even take the plunge. I'm slightly going off topic by talking about them, but I have to say one thing. Unlike the residents of Sanya or Nishinari, these kids are flushed with cash. The source of their income is no surprise. They make money through sugar dating or even prostitution, selling what they have left, namely their youth and their bodies. And these income can be so high, about maybe $1,200 per day. Yes, you heard it right, per day. So why with all this money the phenomenon of Toyoko kids doesn't resolve itself? I mean, $1,500 per day. It's more than enough to find a decent apartment in Tokyo. So if the Toyoko kids phenomenon isn't disappearing, that means the money they make must be going somewhere. Very likely to pachinkos. Actually, the system is a boy Toyoko kids mentally take care of a girl Toyoko kids who sell her body, and all the money she earns go to the hotel room or to the guy, and the guy just spend it stupidly in pachinko. The system is really awful, and in this district of Kabukicho there is also another kind of scam, and this scam is what we call host club. House clubs are places where you pay astronomical sums for alcohol and a bit of a male or female company. Dropping $10,000 in places like this isn't something so extraordinary. And these hosts are adults between 20 and 40 years old who hook women and drain them of all their money. The technique is surprisingly great. It's not give me money and I will love you back. No, it's give me money so I can climb the host rankings, and when I will be at the top, I will give you the high life you deserve. And that pitch works, yes! Many women get taken in. They hope to be the one true love of his heart, but often there isn't even a heart involved. The most important thing is that the girl keep handing over more and more money. So hosts don't hesitate to make them do this. This girl is what is called a tachimbo joshi, a girl standing alone. They line up standing there at night. You approach and they give you a number, 2, with or without condom. Anyway, all the money earned will go straight to the host. And we can literally talk about trafficking and underage human beings. But how can you even help them when they themselves are fighting for the chance to be scammed? The psychological grip is wildly underestimated. These women just can't see reality clearly, not to mention the drugs or the blackmail that are commonplace in that world. So, among the destitute, the elderly end up in the slums, men work during the day but sleep in manga cafe, women and teenage girls get trapped by nightlife jobs. But I wanted to say one more thing. All of what I've told you is extremes. Poverty isn't always about not having a roof over your head. It can simply be present in households with fewer means than others, especially with big inflation right now in Japan, which is making Japanese people poorer day by day. Thank you for watching this video, I hope you learned some stuff. Sorry again for my English accent, I'm still learning. And don't hesitate to subscribe, it will help me a lot. And of course, like this video. See you next time.